Hi everyone, this is Rion Paper. How are you doing? In this video, I'd like to talk about my journaling system. I was going to say planner system as well, but it's going to be mostly about journaling and trackers and stuff. And the way I've been experimenting with that for the past couple of weeks. I will probably do an updated Techo Kaigi video in a while, but first I just want to see how this is going and whether there's going to be any sort of definitive, quote unquote, definitive changes to my system for this year. But yeah, this is what I'm going to be talking about, the Takenote A5 and the Hobonichi A6. I've been struggling with the Takenote A5 since pretty much the beginning of the year. The first couple of weeks, I had a ton of fun journaling in this, but I quickly realized that I often do not have enough to write, enough inspiration of things that I want to write down to fill up these pages, even though it's like just have an A5 page a day. That still felt like too much. And I love how these pages look. I love the layout of this planner. There's a lot of good things to be said, even with the paper struggles that a lot of us have been having with the Tomo River Sansen paper, with all of the bleed through and the feathering, and that hasn't always been fun, and it's actually been quite frustrating at times. But there's a lot of good things to be said about this planner, and the fact that I'm now kind of moving out of it and moving into another planner has nothing to do really with any, like, this planner is not at fault. I am. I just want to see if maybe I can make, how do I put this? If I can have a better time in another planner and have the whole experience feel less like a chore and less like a failure when I end up with pages like this, where there's just a lot of empty room and pages where I didn't journal, I didn't write anything at all, even though I've pre-decorated some of these pages, but I just there is a lot of empty space. And I do quite like this page. So what has been going really well is just the trackers and stuff in the planner. However, I've also realized that maybe I've been tracking less and less every month, less and less things, and I'm actually quite fine with that. I'm not really currently in a phase where I want to pick up a lot of new habits or want to change a lot of things in the way that I do things. So that is basically what I like tracking for, is motivating myself to do things more or less, or just be aware of things. That's not really anything that's going on right now. So I feel like I could even do without tracking some of these things. I still quite like my mood tracking and temperature tracking. Sleep tracking I might stop doing because I started doing that at a time where my sleep just wasn't really good and I wanted to improve it, which was around the time that I started my new job last summer. But it's actually been pretty, consistent over the past couple months, and I don't really feel the need to track it. And that's like one of those things that takes up quite a bit of space. So, it might be if I found that a super important thing that I absolutely want to do in another planner, then, jumping into a smaller book like the A6 might be a problem. But I kind of made a list of things that are super important to me and things that I might do it if I have the space, just, because it's fun, but it's not super essential. And that's basically what I do in here. I also do my media tracking, which is basically just this list view of like episodes that I watched, albums that I listened to, books, like chapters from books that I read. I'm realizing that I do really like tracking my media, but maybe instead of like every day, like I am quite a slow reader. I only read for like maybe half an hour or so at a time, and then like I read a couple chapters. And if I read like an 800-page book, that means that I write down that same book on many days. And maybe I'll just want to write down at some place like this date I started the book and this date I finished it. So it's just like 2 lines somewhere in my planner instead of the same title coming up and up again. So that's kind of what the state was in my Hobonichi, my Takeno A5. And then I thought, you know what? I am going to get a Spring Start Hobonichi A6, which is a book that I've used for years. I think I have 3 of these from, I don't know, let's say 2021, 22, and 23, I think. And actually just when I started this YouTube channel, I moved into other planners and I quit using the A6, but I have quite a bit of quote unquote experience with the A6. And I know what I like and what I don't like about this planner. And I feel like for planning and to-do lists and stuff, it was always a bit of a struggle, but it could be a really good solution for my, like just a bit of journaling, tracking, decorating, just all of the good stuff that I did in here. So I have a cover for this that I've used previously. I don't love it. It's super basic, but this is the Kikuyo A6 cover. And I'm just going to put this in here. There we go. I might at some point maybe change the cover, but I felt like as this is more of an experiment, I absolutely don't want to invest in another cover if I don't know if I'm like, if I love it, if I'm going to be using this system. I don't really like clear covers, so that's why I didn't get anything like a clear cover on this. Decorated the front with just a simple sticker from London Gifties and this cat sticker that I had lying around. I have absolutely no idea where I got that from, but it kind of obscured the little bit of, I think it said like 2025 or spring edition or something that just peeked out from the circle. So I needed something to obscure that because I just like to have it look a bit more just, I don't know, decorated, but nothing too crazy. I used to really hate the, like, I don't know, buttery yellow color of the Hobonichi books. But I actually really like how it's almost the same color as the moon and stars on this sticker. So it feels like this really goes well together. And now I quite like it. I haven't done any other decoration for like the inside of the cover or like this calendar. I might do that at some point. I'm just not in any hurry to do that because I don't know, I like to get a feel for a book first before I do decoration like this. And the same goes for all of these sort of special pages in the front, like this yearly index, the calendar pages, like the monthly calendars. I haven't used those yet because I'm still thinking about how I want to use them. The things that I want to do in here are the things that I was doing in some other layouts in this book. I'm sorry if you can hear the noise of my cats in the litter box. They are always super, super loud. I don't know. They are digging as if their lives depend on it. So yeah, things like mood tracking, temperature tracking, those are the things that I want to do in here. But because the layout is different, I kind of want to see what like how I want to space things, what I do want to carry over and what I don't. But to make sure that I don't lose the information, I've just been keeping this book up to date. So in the take a note, I'm still writing down my mood, the temperatures, rain, anything like that, asleep. So when I'm ready, I can transfer it to this book and have it be up to date as well. So this book starts in April, but there's like a couple monthly pages before that, and like from February, and the calendar goes from all the way from, let's see, February as well to January of the year. No, even May 2026. So there's a lot of room here. I've also been thinking about how a spring start book makes me feel, but I feel like it actually makes a lot of sense in my head. I mean, obviously we have like New Year's Day and the start of the new year, and we've all been very, at least, here in Europe, been very used to January 1st being the start of a new year, and with that, the start of a new book often. But I feel like it makes a lot of sense to have spring be the start of the new year, because that often feels like the start of a new year, and I'm always more motivated in spring than, in January, where January feels more like a month of rest after a very busy December. And I feel like, I don't know, a spring start, even though I'm not used to books like planners, journals, etc. starting in April, it does make sense. Just the way that when I was in school still, I always had an academic planner, so one that started in September, because that was when our school year started. So that always made a lot of sense to me. And I feel like spring is equally useful for that. So I haven't done too much in this. I've only been in this for 2 weeks, but just put down a big sticker on the April cover page, and then I just started writing. And I think when you have a full page of writing in here, it is kind of similar to one column in the A5, except that the Take a Note planner is very, very efficient in its spacing. So there's not a lot of space that you lose. Whereas here you have the quotes, and you have like a bigger timeline and a bigger date thingy. So ultimately, I feel like the A6 is a little less space per day. But if you add some decoration to it, it's even less. And I know this sounds like I'm just trying to make sure that I have to write very little every day, as though I don't like writing. I quite do like writing, but it's just that I mostly write on the days when I'm at home. So that's usually my days off, and the days that I work from home as well, maybe some days in the weekend, but not always. So I just don't get to writing every single day. Usually on days when I go into the office, like in the evening, I just don't really feel like writing anymore. So there will very often be days where I have 2 empty pages that need filling. And when that's 2 A6 pages with a bit of decoration, that is still manageable. But when it's like a bigger page, it's quite easily just too much. So yeah, I've just been enjoying putting some decoration down, switching my pens more often that I write with, the pens and inks, because I liked using like 1 or 2 inks for a week in the A5, whereas here I feel like every double spread can be very different. The lack of a weekly structure is something that I quite enjoy in here. I've also experimented having a bit of a to-do list for the week in here, in this case for like a video game that I play and that I kind of want to do all kinds of like small things in throughout the week. that worked quite well, but it's less relevant to look back on. Whereas some of the writing is more interesting, I guess, for like future me to look back on, like what was I thinking, etc. Just a bit of decoration. I'm trying to keep the decoration very simple. If I want to do more, I can do more, but I've always enjoyed simple decoration. I feel like the paper in this book has been better so far than in the Takenode, but I may just be lucky so far. I'm sure there's also bad pages in here. That is just the batch of paper that we're working with for this year. This was the day that April 11th that the new album from my favorite band in the whole world was released. So I just wrote down the track list, the album title, and a little bit of a review on the other page. I think those are pages that take very little time to make, but they are fun to look back on because it is like a memory, like, oh, that's when the album was released, and what were my favorite songs right when it was released, and what are they like a year later. Some more writing, some very simple decoration. These quite bigger stickers, these pages look full very quickly, even though it's just 2 stickers. And then this is today's page that I still need to write stuff in. Sometimes I write down which pen and ink I'm writing with, because that's fun to look back on. Because I find myself often thinking like, ooh, I quite like this, like how this ink looks, but what ink was it? So now I just sometimes write that down. Is this book perfect? Is this the end-all solution? No, probably not. There are also things that I don't really like about this book. My main gripe with it being the colors. I would have loved it if this planner was completely like gray toned, black and white. I don't like the red and sort of dark gray accents, more like bluish gray accents in most of the pages. I don't really like the colors on the daily pages, although I like some more than others. I don't really like the color for April, but then for example, for June, we have this lovely foresty green that I quite like. I remember liking September, which is like a brown that feels very autumnal. But yeah, I do feel like this could be a great experiment and a great way to see if this way I can keep up with my journaling more easily without really having to sacrifice anything. There's still enough space. If I want to write a bit more, then I just don't put down any decoration, and I have plenty of space. I can do most of my tracking in here still. I just need to see how I want to like space things, but there's enough room. And obviously I also still have the Hobonichi weeks that I use for planning that I use alongside this, that has plenty of blank space in the back. So there's more than enough flexibility, and I feel like this is just enough structure to keep me like motivated and grounded in my journaling practice. So that's just my experience after 2 weeks. I'm curious to see how this will evolve, because I'm also very much aware that I am probably 2 weeks in any planner, I'd be pretty, happy and pretty consistent, because that is just the honeymoon phase of a new book. But I am hopeful. And I'm even thinking like way too far ahead about next year's lineup. And I'm thinking, okay, would I start a new book in, like, let's say I journal consistently in this book until December. Do I get a January start to just, line everything up in January? Or do I just use this until March and go with an a spring start. I think that could actually be nice. And it doesn't even have to start at the same day as my planner. I could still go with a Hobonichi Weeks that starts in January, and then a Hobonichi A6 that starts in April, and have a more gradual evolution of the books, a gradual change, I guess. I don't know. Those are very unrefined thoughts so far, but I'm sure that in time I'll have a clearer vision of how I want to do this. Yeah, that's probably enough rambling for now. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll definitely keep you updated. The A5 is not going anywhere. It's still a book that I very, very much enjoy. And I'm actually quite kind of excited to have the freedom now. That sounds like I'm like just making up way too many rules, but I don't know, to feel free enough to experiment with other things in this. Maybe I'll use this for planning for a week and see how I like that. There's options, and I like options. So with that, I hope to see you in the next one, and thank you for watching. Take care. Bye.